Jude Bellingham. James Pearce come out today and said that Liverpool is widely admired by Liverpool, but there's an acceptance that it might be tough to land the 18-year-old this summer, given that Borussia Dortmund have already sold Erling Haaland. It would take in excess of £80 million to sign him. Now, I don't know if he said that weirdly, but how I think that sounds is if we give Borussia Dortmund 80 million this summer, that they would take it. That's what I got from his thingio. But that would then mean that his price tag is being decreased next summer, which I don't think happens under any circumstances. But Jack, we've lost out on Tchouaméni, who would have cost about £80 million if we were to sign him. However, Jude Bellingham is somebody who Liverpool have tracked for a very long time. Do you think they just pull the trigger now they've missed out on one of the main targets and say, you know what, we'll just take him this summer? At the end of the day, he's only 18 years old, so he still is young. But next season, when Borussia Dortmund are probably going to be more likely to sell him, we're probably going to be battling every major club in Europe, aren't we?
I have no idea. When I saw that figure, £80 million, it kind of showcases how much transfers have been diluted and skyrocketed in price in recent years in football. That's cheap. That is cheap for a guy of Bellingham's quality, considering that his contract is, 4 more years, 5 more years? He's not pressed for a renewal. He's can walk into our 11. He's English, which is a big factor because it means that you have to have 8 English players in your squad, and if one of them is one of your most key players, it allows you to bring in more foreign players and kind of be a bit more flexible with your squad. Because you looked at the 11, for that Champions League final, it was Trent and Henderson were, the only English players there. It's a big factor if you don't have that. If you said 120 million for Jude Bellingham gets him out, I'm saying pull the trigger right now. Because if you're telling me you're selling Naby Keita and Sadio Mane, and maybe we have to kind of take a bit of an inferior forward to bring in Jude Bellingham, look, he's 18. He's the kind of guy where he's here for the next 15 years. That's not 120 million pounds for 1 year of service. That is, 10 million pounds a year for the next 12 years. That's even a good deal in that sense. I think that I mentioned how poor this market is. I hope that Liverpool break their model of spending on good players that fit. Sure, maybe they can find a few that really do, that are under the radar. I fully believe them to do that. But they shouldn't settle for the cheaper, somewhat fit. Get the perfect fit for the big price. The cost a lot because they fit like a glove. Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane. I think one of the two. Both of them, and I'm asking for too much, I understand that. But one of the two would transform the way we play and would fit from day one. I think Bellingham has a better chance of happening because 80 million pounds, I think that's even respectable in the sense that it's just barely beyond our record signing. I think that, and especially if Keita and Mane go, that's pretty much it funded right there by itself. That's a no-go.
Yeah, Jay, I'm going to sort of break down a few transfers. If Liverpool say they don't have money for this, well, let's say we go just off player sales. Mane, 40 million. Ox, 10 million. Minamino, 15 million. Nico Williams, 15 million. Nat Phillips, 15 million. You're removing James Mill, all of them wages off, including James Milner, Divock Origi. Their money is there if they want to fund it just by player sales, isn't it?
I think what Jack said was spot on, mate. When I seen 80 million for Bellingham, I sort of read it twice because I thought Dortmund would be asking for in excess of 100 million, given everything Jack's already covered. But the reason I think it's important we actually do pull the trigger this season is you've got to look at the rest of Europe. Man United are in a terrible position. You would never want to sign for them right now. That might not be the case next season. Chelsea aren't in the best position to be signing players right now. Man City have just signed Haaland. Real Madrid have just signed Tchouaméni for a similar price. There isn't really anyone else that could probably realistically go for him properly in terms of next season. You'd have a lot more competitors in comparison to this season because a lot of them have already made moves for people. Obviously, you've mentioned the player sales. We should have a budget regardless of that anyway. So that only adds to what our budget should be this season anyway, which I thought it was over 80 million, including player sales. So I think it's actually the perfect time to go for him now. Even if you didn't want to spend full 80, offer 50 in Keita or 60 in Keita.
Yeah, I also want to hit on the fact that you mentioned United not in a good spot this summer. Chelsea, I don't think are going for a guy like Bellingham. They need a defensive mid more. I mean, everyone else pretty much needs defensive mids beyond ourselves and City, which means that eights like Bellingham aren't really the priority. Declan Rice is a stupid amount of money because he's a not one of a kind player. He's a rare player who can play as a lone defensive mid, and everyone wants to play that 4-3-3. United are trying to convince Frankie de Jong to join them at all costs because he would transform the way they play. He's their priority. Bellingham, there's no eyes on him right now versus next summer. If de Jong, Declan Rice, a defensive mid or two are signed by some of these sides that need it, and then you see Chelsea and maybe Arsenal break into the top four, and they have some money they want to spend. City will have not brought Haaland, so they'll be in there as well for him because De Bruyne Silva will be getting on in age a bit. You go from it's not a one-horse race for us in the slightest. People will still be interested. But you go from it being a pretty narrow field of contenders to it could be 4 or 5 teams from England, and that's not even factoring in that Madrid are already spending on Tchouaméni. Maybe PSG are pissed off they didn't get Tchouaméni, and they say, let's go sign Bellingham. There are other teams outside of England who have a lot of money as well. So I think you've don't put it off. I think you have to make one statement sign in the summer. I'd love multiple, but you have to make at least one. If Mane goes, one of your staples, I don't think we have a ready-made replacement. I don't want to go into the next season with Jota being our starting number 9. I think he's capable of being that position, but it can't be with no competition. There needs to be someone there. Henderson cannot be playing as much as he is. He should be more so a backup 6 than a starting number 8 on the right side. So I think there's a lot of signings needed, and a statement one could really go a long way. I think Bellingham's perfect for that.
Yeah, look, I think an absolutely unbelievable deal for both parties would be a Jude Bellingham swap with Naby Keita, but also giving them even more, giving them 60 million, or 65 million, and just saying look, we know you don't want to sell this summer. We're going to give you, at one point, the best midfielder in the Bundesliga. Yes, he might not be anymore, but at one point he was. And, that then solves their crisis of having to go out and find a midfielder. So there's a lot of options. I don't buy this whole Dortmund won't sell him this summer. You give Dortmund the price that they want and they'll sell him. They have always done that. They did it the year after. They did it the year after they lost the Champions League final, where they lost about 5 of their main players to Bayern Munich, and they've done it in the past as well. So it's definitely something that they have done before.
I just want to bring up an interesting point. I'm just scrolling through the transfer market, like the website Liverpool's history transfers year on year. They haven't made, it's in dollars for me because the accent, I'm here in America. They have not made over $50 million in transfer sales since 2017-2018 season when they sold Felipe Coutinho, and Coutinho took up literally 150 million of that. So that summer was just Mamadou Sakho, a bit of loan fee for Origi, Lucas Leiva. So they have not made a lot of money in a transfer window in a long, long time, and all of a sudden now you've got 2 pretty decently priced assets in Mane and Keita potentially to go. So big contracts in Milner and Origi, not necessarily big for both of them, but contracts going, and then a lot of deadwood. Not deadwood. That's poor. That's a poor way of saying Nico Williams and Nat Phillips. Ben Davies. Are
inadequate backups.
Inadequate backups who are going to go and be replaced by younger guys that are going to make some money. We could legitimately be making 100 million easily this summer. Which then, if you spend 100 million on top of that, you're almost wondering how many positions, how many players are you buying then? 200 million, I think, gets you 3 players. And if you have 3 players for that kind of money, you're signing some good guys. And Bellingham, I think, genuinely though, I don't think we putz around with the Keita plus money thing. I think we just say literally 80 million. Here you go for Jude.
Yeah, definitely.
And unsettle him.
Yeah, I'd pulled the trigger. I think we're all in agreement. I think I speak for most Liverpool fans. Jude Bellingham's probably the perfect midfielder. I think we all were like, Tchouaméni this season's great, but we were all still like, and then Bellingham next season. So now that Tchouaméni's off the table, it's time to go all guns blazing for Jude Bellingham, in my opinion.